Expectations. I didn't have any expectations going into the group. I knew the folks, and so I knew the conversation was going to be good. And I think that's one of the more compelling reasons why I decided to join.
Ian recruited me, and he just told me more about this, this group he's involved with. They're doing a poly ed class, and I was really interested because I personally am interested in learning more about, anarchism. And you don't really learn that stuff in school. I mean, I graduated from college and with not a lot of knowledge about anarchism or Marxism or anything.
He told me it was a class of, it was a group that he was in called Amanecer, and it was a group that was anarchistically oriented, or there was a couple of anarchists at least, he said, that were in it, which, interested me. I've been interested in anarchism for a long time.
I didn't really know. I didn't really know what anarchism was, and what I did is I read the packet that you guys gave us, the informational packet of what the classes were going to be about, and so I really didn't know what to expect except for a class on anarchism and different theories. But I didn't really have any expectations. I just knew I was going to learn something that I wasn't familiar with, but I was interested in.
Coming into the program, I was looking forward to doing reading with people about anarchism and about how social movements have benefited from having anarchists in them, and trying to get a better sense of how anarchists today can actually take a positive role in organizations and movements and support each other, because that's something where I feel like it's been lacking in my experience, where there hasn't been any way for anti-authoritarians to actually help each other out as the struggles in the organizations are going forward. People just get kind of left out, and you either sink or swim, and usually you sink, and that sucks.
I wouldn't call myself political, and I wouldn't say I even knew about most of this stuff even beforehand. I've been involved. I've always been involved in things through my mom and through just organizing for working through a nonprofit at Siren and just everywhere where I work.
It was like one of the first classes that we had at the store, and there was a point in the class where you were doing a presentation on you were doing a presentation with a movie, and I think you were trying to get on with it, showing the movie, and you brought up something about capitalism, and then I knew that my girlfriend Lily was kind of lost as far as to what capitalism is, and so I asked you a question that I asked you. So what's capitalism? Can you get it into more detail with as far as like what's capitalism? Can you explain that to people who don't know what that is? And it kind of threw you off a little bit, and I think that it wasn't my intention, but it was memorable because it was like one of the first moments that I kind of like really stepped into the class, and it wasn't bad at all. It was just that it was like I was making waves in the class, and I wasn't trying to cause trouble or anything like that, but it was definitely an interaction.
Some of the high moments I thought were probably in terms of content, I would say I was really fascinated with the history of the socialist movement overall, at least in the West. I hadn't heard it all strung together as one continuous chronology, and I thought that was really good. I think it gets glossed over a lot, and I think that different movements in different parts of the world have adopted parts of the socialist traditions and anarchism too. And I think that finding that is just, well, it's really interesting, but it's also a way to try to connect with existing movements right now and refer to things in terms of how people are thinking about it on the ground in their organization.
When Ian walked into the room along with Adam, dressed up in like a bandana, Adam was wearing some sort of cargo jacket, and they were pretending there was a role play going on. I don't know if I'm describing this in the best sense, but I guess to make a long story short, I think the class was best when there were a lot of interactive activities where the facilitators were really trying to get the people in the group to think about things in a more interesting and fun way. And there were a lot of great conversations. I think the high point was always that you walked out of the room feeling like there were a lot of really cool ideas being discussed that you don't get to talk about on a day-to-day basis.
You know, the personal stories of their lives and how we really talked about like how we became, why we became the way we are, you know, what you could call radical or radical leftist or politically minded or, you know, critical thinkers about the world around us. And we were all talking about our own personal stories. Ian was sharing about, you know, how his father was involved with the Black Panther Party. Malicia was talking about her experiences in Mexico. So we were all talking about different things in our lives that kind of, you know, brought us to this point, to where we're at now, and you know why we've all come together here in this class. And it really cemented the connection that people, you know, wanted to have with each other. So it gave us a purpose and a reason to be there in the class, basically. So
One of the topics that we talked about in the end, and I think that's probably why it's fresh in my mind, is the topic of why a lot of social movements haven't happened here in the United States. I mean, they have, though. That's the thing, that they have. But why haven't they happened to the degree in like other countries, especially Latin America? I think that topic was a big one for me. And the thing is that there was no answer, and you know, that's probably a debate that'll keep going on. And I like thinking about that kind of stuff. I like thinking about it and bringing it down to what I think it is, what are my opinions, and that I have one, you know, and just wanting to find out more about what I think about that.
Politically, I have a lot more reference points. And again, just talking about theorists or talking about lines of political thinking that do not get too much plug or play elsewhere. And I think that was that was also actually a reason why I wanted to join the group. I knew before going in that one of the things that y'all were going to talk about were especificismo, because I had heard about it in the past. And that was really interesting to me, actually. And I really appreciate how the group had this broad view where you take it from a macro view and you start going through the different theories and you start going through the different social issues that are happening, and then you tie it into a line of thinking that's more contemporary.
Politically, I'd say I take away that I have a lot more of a sense of community with anti-authoritarians here in San Jose that I didn't have before. And that's going to be very helpful. It makes it feel a lot more possible to kick off bigger projects and work on things in a real way and talk about my politics within spaces that, you know, maybe wouldn't really welcome anybody talking about ideological stuff. They want you to help with their struggles. But if you have people in your community that you know you can go to and ask advice and ask for assistance in those struggles amongst all these organizers and people that are doing all this work all the time anyway, it makes it feel a lot more possible to have a real anarchist presence in the organizing that really matters here in San Jose.
But political, as you mean, like the way I understand now after the class, at least I'm aware of it now. And I know I have a good base of the different structures and everything. And so I think that's what I take with me is a new knowledge of what is out there. So, yeah. And that there can be something different.
And being able to see that progression over 6 months is really important. And to be able to walk away with that sort of a timeline or time frame or history or just a macro understanding, I think is really valuable. It's better than getting, a 2-minute soundbite about something. and that was something I also really liked. And so, yeah, I mean, I walked out of the session with a fat book list that, and just finding some of those books, that's going to be a little adventure in and of itself.
A lot of the literature that we were reading was pretty thought-provoking, especially the stuff about the transgender stuff, transsexual stuff. That's not stuff that you read a lot about in everyday, school books or even on the internet or mainstream media. And reading that stuff really changes your perspective on life and the world around us, because homophobia is something that we deal with a lot every day. And the stuff about race and, about South America, and, talking about these subjects that people kind of don't talk about in normal day-to-day life, or they do, but they only talk about it in a certain way, and there's certain rules and limits that have to be followed. And kind of going out of the bounds and being able to just talk about whatever we wanted to was liberating, and read about whatever we wanted to was liberating, because you get to read different viewpoints and perspectives besides just the mainstream rich, white, male, old kind of perspective that we usually get every day.
I definitely learned a lot more about anarchism and the different sects of anarchism, and also about Marxism. And and I feel like we've only touched the surface, because I feel like we have a lot more to learn. Yeah, and it was pretty enriching. I'm glad I participated in class.
I hadn't realized how hungry I was to read with a group of people. I hadn't realized that I had been away from that for so long.
But yeah, I guess that was it. Does that make sense? I mean, you can edit all of that stuff out.